Hey folks, Patrick here, and today we are going to be downloading an SBOM for a Chainguard container. So if you're just looking for a quick command you can run, you're trying to get something done, you just want the TLDR, you can look in the description of this video. We have a command for you to copy out and a link to a short tutorial. But what we'll cover today is what an SBOM is, what an attestation is, and how to download an SBOM and then parse it out with JQ to get something usable and useful. So before we get into the specifics of downloading an SBOM, let's first understand what an attestation is. So an attestation is a statement or a piece of metadata about some software artifact that is then authenticated. They can take various forms. So a few useful ones are, for example, SALSA provenance, SLSA provenance, which tells you how and by whom and under what circumstances an artifact was generated. And another useful one is an SBOM. And an SBOM stands for Software Bill of Materials. And essentially what an SBOM is your manifest. Some people say like ingredients label for your software artifact. So it basically tells you all of the packages or other components that comprise that software artifact. Okay, so let's switch into demo mode here. We're going to use the cosign tool. So that's part of the SigStore project, and it is a signing library, and it also allows you to check and verify signatures. We're going to use it to download an attestation associated with a Chainguard image. So we're most interested in SBOM in this tutorial, but let's just start by getting access to all the different attestations that are attached to this image. So we'll do cosign, just make sure it's installed. There you go, we got a cosign installed. Cosign, download subcommand, attestation. And we're going to provide an argument that's the image. Chainguard Python. So this is our Python container. Let's just see what comes back. So this is going to be some base 64 encoded information. So let's go ahead and parse that out into something more useful. We could use JQ to look at the keys, just to get a sense of what we're looking at here. So we've got these different keys. And what we're most interested here is we've got these envelopes. We're most interested in the payload. You can look at the signatures, you can look at some of this other information that's wrapping it, but right now what we want is the information itself, the payload. So let's pull that out. We're going to do JQ R to get for raw and get everything under that payload key. Let's just make sure that works. Yep. And then we will further base 64 decrypted. So base 64 decrypt. And let's see what comes back. It's human readable, but it's still quite messy. So let's also then do JQ, and I'll just do keys and see. It's a good way to get an overview. So what we're seeing here is JSON stream. That actually means we have 3 separate artifacts here, and each of them is an attestation. We've got our predicate. Well, instead of getting the keys, let's pull out the predicate type. Let's cut that. There we go. Predicate type for each. And now we see 3 different document specifications. So these are 3 types of attestations that are attached to the Chainguard container. So we have our apko configuration, useful YAML related to the build process. Apko is a declarative tool for building container images. And so you can use that to see the entry point or other information was passed during build time. Then you also have SALSA provenance, which tells you more useful information about the integrity of the container. Finally, you have the SBOM. So that is information on what software is contained within the software artifact. So typically that means packages. So let's actually pull out the SBOM specifically. So this SBOM in particular, it's in SPDX format. So we're going to copy this document specification here. Start again, creating the command. Instead of downloading all 3, we're going to pass in arguments to specify exactly what we want. So we're actually going to pass in a platform and also the predicate type. Oh, we want this type of document, and specifically in this case, it's going to be the SBOM in SPDX format. So let's do cosign, download attestation, and we will pass in platform, Linux, AMD 64, and then we'll pass in the predicate type, and I copied it. So there it is. And then finally, we will pass in the target container. let's do the Python container again. Okay, and now we have to decrypt it and everything again. So let's do our jq.payload and our base64 decryption. Make sure we get it back. And then we will parse it with JQ to get something a little more human readable. So JQ, and let's just get the keys. And there are the keys. So at this point, you have successfully downloaded an SBOM, but let's take a little poke around these different keys and just see what's inside. Let's look at the subject and the predicate. So we'll correct our command. Instead of keys here, I'm going to pull out the subject. And what this basically tells you is information about the container. So in this case, it's the name of the container and the SHA with the unique hash of the container, so that it identifies what container we're targeting here. And then really the most useful thing here is the predicate. So that's actually the metadata contained in the attestation. So in the case of the SBOM, that's going to give us all the information on what packages and other software components are contained within the software artifact. So let's pull out the predicate. So the predicate. And then let's get the keys out of here just so we have a useful overview. License, packages. So let's go pull out this packages, which should tell us the different software components contained. So that's quite an overwhelming amount of information, but there's some useful things we can do with it. So now that we have all the packages, we can use JQ to get the length of that list of packages. So it tells us how many packages are enumerated, 75 packages in this software artifact. Other things we can do is we could, for example, pull out all the different names. So we could do JQ and then pull out everything from the array and then get out the name key. And that should tell us all the different names of the components in this software artifact. All right, so we learned what an attestation is. We learned what an SBOM is. We learned how to use cosign to download attestations. Take a look at the predicate, which is the actual metadata, to get something useful, which are all the names of the different packages contained. You can also go to our Chainguard console and see similar information. Just want to grab the information from an SBOM quickly. You just want to know, oh, is a certain package contained in a certain Chainguard container? You can go to our console here. And you've got a nice overview, and then you can go to the SBOM section for information on all the different packages that are contained. So this is great working interactively if you just want to look up one piece of information. All right, so hopefully this gives you a basis for building some tooling around attestations such as SBOMs in your CI/CD and working with SBOMs and Chainguard containers. Be safe out there.